Hello, welcome. I'm Neil Hambly and this is Data+Train. We are going to be covering the DA100 exam, its course, contents, what you're going to be tested against over the next 4 months. So during August, September, October and November, we will be putting out a number of videos, actually one every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting with episode 1 today. We're going to be covering all of the different areas, and we split those into one core functional group per month for the first 3 months, and then we cover the last 2 functional groups in the November because they're much smaller and attribute to a smaller percentage of the weighted questions. Today we're going to look at prepare the data. We're going to get started on the first couple of tasks that you will be looking at, which is ingesting data into Power BI, and then also potentially changing the sources of that data. We're going to explore what's in the curriculum. We're going to show you how we're going to break that down over the next several weeks. But let's get started. So first off, let me kind of introduce some of the content. This is episode 1. We're looking to get that data analyst certification. So you will need to undertake the single exam, which is the DA100. You need to pass with a 700 or higher score. That's a points, not a percentage. And we're going to explore what that looks like right now. So on the screen here, you can see that we have some details about who I am and where I come from, what business I kind of run. But also below that, we have, if we just zone in a little bit, the Power BI DA100 Analyzing Data with Microsoft Power BI certification. And you'll see to the right-hand side of that screen, prepare the data is covered in August. Model the data will be in September. Visualize the data in October and analyze the data in November. And also adding into that deploy and maintain deliverables in November as well. The percentage weightings is 20 to 25% for prepare the data, 25 to 30% for model the data, 20 to 25% for visualize the data, 10 to 15 for analyze the data, and 10 to 15 for deploy and maintain deliverables. What that means is across the range of those 5 functional groups, we will have a total of 100% of the questions driven from these sections. We're going to explore now what that looks like in a little bit more detail, and then we're going to come back and look at kind of what the Microsoft Learn resources have available for us to get started on that journey. We will be sharing additional other resources as we go through the month. I've got a website being provisioned right now, and once that's ready, I believe probably next week, we will have some of these videos that were created embedded, along with additional content that you can be shared with you for your journey on the Power BI course. We're also going to look at something called Role IQ from Pluralsight today that allows you to assess where you currently stand with your knowledge around the kind of Power BI and the kind of analytics space. This is going to allow you to find kind of where your strengths and weaknesses are, what you need to focus on in terms of knowledge, and also, you know, are you at the kind of entry level, or are you a bit more proficient, or are you at expert level? And once we kind of get you into the high proficiency expert level, you're probably going to be ready to take that exam. So we'll kind of see what we're covering, and we're going to look in detail now. So I'm going to pull up the certification track, and I'm going to look at the skills measured. Now, I've identified on the screen here 2 specific tasks that fall into the get data from different data sources, and this is going to be episode 1. The following 2, select share data set and select storage mode, sorry, these 2 here, are going to be episode 2. And then we'll go episode 3 this week. We will be on Friday, where we look at query types and query performance issues. We're roughly doing between 1 and 3 of these specific tasks. Depends on the size of the task and what we have available in that month. But there generally will be 13 videos every single month. Prepare the data is going to be August, model the data for October, etc. So let's get started with identifying and connect our data source. So we're going to use Power BI Desktop. If you're not familiar with Power BI Desktop and don't have it before, we can go to powerbi.com. And I'm just going to zone in a little bit on that. And you can see here that we have our Power BI site. And on products, if you click the drop down, you'll see Power BI Desktop highlighted here. You will need to click on this and download and install it locally. It's a completely free tool, but it's what you'll do most of your development with. So you're already kind of familiar with it. Great. You've already got it installed. Excellent. If not, go to powerbi.com and grab that Power BI Desktop app. It does replace itself with a newer version every month, roughly about mid-month. And you can also find out more details about the, under resources, go to blog and find out more details about what's being released in that version. So if I go down here, you'll see that we have a feature summary that happens every month. So this is the last one from July. And if you come into this, you'll find that that will be a detailed list of all of the new features and enhancements to that release. My recommendation is you keep up to date with the latest release. It has some improvements as well to performance, but you kind of will be able to definitely take advantage of some of the features, and you may need to go and turn some of these on in preview states. We will cover that a little bit more in one of the videos I'm going to be doing later this week or next week. So let's go and open up Power BI. With the magic of what I've already done, I already have one of those available, so I'm just going to magically bring that over. But you would go to Start and open up Power BI. It's got this nice yellow indicator with a bar graph on there. So I'm just going to discard all the changes I had in that report, and I'm going to start creating some new data into the Power BI report. So this is where we were looking at getting data into a report. So if you want to do this yourself, I'm going to show you a Microsoft Learn module that is going to be identical for the steps I'm going to perform right now. Let's go have a look at that very quickly. And the steps and the link will be in the description below. And also, if you want to know more and want to be alerted to when things are going to happen, you can also come and try and get the right button this time. There we go. Subscribe to our channel and you'll be able to get notified when a new video gets released. So on here, I was going to this Microsoft Learn resource. Let me go in a little bit further. For August, we are covering this Get Data in Power BI. Click on that link and that will take us into the Get Data in Power BI module. And in here, if I look down, I've got some introduction to the services. It will kind of explain what there is. I'm going to kind of scroll down a bit further and you can see it takes us through the steps and explains a little bit about some of the context that you'll be looking at. So I do recommend you spend a bit of time just glancing through. They're usually quite quick, these videos, these modules. But the reason why I'm bringing this predominantly into this one, if I go to the top and bring the list of units in this module, there's a lab, prepare data in Power BI. Let me just kind of come in a bit further. This one here, if you click on this, this is going to take you into this lab. Now there is a launch lab capability. It's a free resource. It steps up some resources, kind of a virtual machine, essentially, really environment for you. Provisions all the services and you can follow through all the steps. So let's go and look at that. This usually takes about 2 minutes to load. So I'm just going to click on Start Lab and you can see now it's currently going to the Lab on Demand website. It's currently loading this lab for us and you can do exactly the same here. So we'll be able to wait for this to complete. It's usually about a minute or just over for it to provision. So while it's doing that, let's go and have a look at what we're covering inside of this. So we were going to create an empty file called Sales Analysis. In here, we're going to also turn off some of the option settings. The reason why we're doing that is so that we can kind of go through the experiment and understand when we're bringing multiple tables or queries in that we don't get them related. So here we're going through and turning off the import relationship capability. So we're just loading the tables independently and it's not going to try and figure out if there's relationships that should exist. we're going to be looking at that as a later step in lab number 3 later on. We're going to get some data from a local SQL server, a very common place for one of the connectors, and we're going to look at the connectors in a little bit more detail right now in order to show you what's kind of there, why that lab is being provisioned. So I'm going to open up my Power BI. I'm going to go to the very top of my screen, and here in the ribbon I get my Get Data connector. I can click on that, and that will give me a list of the connectors available that I will be able to kind of use. So let me do that. You see here we have Excel, we have CSV, we have SQL. We're going to click the SQL Server one, but if I click on More, and I'm just going to wait for that to load and then kind of move the screen over a little bit. I'm going to zoom it a little bit because it's easier to do that. And in here now I can see there's a large number of different ones like SQL Database, SQL Data Warehouse, SQL Cosmos DB. There's Power BI data sets. There's Dynamics and Common Data Service. There's a whole bunch of applications, and we can even run things like R scripts and Python scripts here, as well as ODBC and OLEDB connectors. You'll see some of those will say beta in the right of that, which means it's currently in beta state. So just be aware of that. And a good point actually for the exam is when the course got defined and the exam criteria got figured out, some of these items that Power BI had at the time were in beta. So those were eliminated from the exam scope. Anything in beta wouldn't have been allowed. Subsequently, since then, some of those items may have come out of beta and be full mainstream, but they will not be on the exam. The exam probably is revisited after a single year by Microsoft to see if they want to update the content, because laterally there's probably quite a few changes that would have happened to the product. But just be aware, kind of as we go through this course and through the stuff, you'll be thinking, well, that's kind of in my current version, it's not in beta, why is it not on the exam? And that will be the reason why. I can filter these a little bit by, say, database, and I can scroll up and say, look, we've got things like SQL Server and Access databases. We've got our file formats, JSON, XML. We even have a folder. What that essentially means is I can pick a folder and it will process the contents of the folder for any files that meet the kind of acceptable file types that we can process in Power BI. PDFs, SharePoints, etc. Azure, obviously, naturally a ton of resources in Azure. And Power BI service itself is obviously Azure based. The Power BI desktop is a tool that we download and install, but essentially this is something we're going to ultimately upload into the Power BI service and share those reports and data sets. Okay, so let's go and see if we have our environment ready. So I'm just going to go back to, go to the screen now, one sec, and come back to the location, the lab. Where was it? So we can find it. It does tend to, there we go. So this is the lab environment. To log in, you click on the resources button and click the kind of control or delete. You'll then click in the T word or type the password. I just click the T and that fills it in for me. Very lazy for me to do that, but I love it. And now I've got my instructions. So I need to now go to the instructions, I should say. Let me kind of restate this a little bit. So it's a little bit smaller on the screen, but I can see the instructions a lot larger for this purpose of demonstration. So we were going to open up a blank Power BI desktop app. We're going to set some options. We're going to connect some data. We're going to preview, and we're going to kind of understand the data a little bit by doing some profiling and understanding the column details better. So I'm double clicking on the Power BI desktop app. This is going to load an empty file like it does with an empty Word or Excel file. We will have an empty file, and then we need to go and kind of import some data. Before we do that, we're going to just save the empty file first, called sales analysis, and then we're going to set some set values. So let me kind of just kill that window. And by the way, if you want to get that window back, you just do file, go back. You can come in and you can kind of go to get started and you can get that window back again. But I want to go File, Options, Settings. I'm going to choose Options. I'm going to wait for that to load. I'm going to go down to the current file. I'm going to go to Data Load, and I'm going to turn off this button and this button. And I'm also going to turn off Auto Detect Date Time. Personally, myself, but when you're first starting, you may want to keep, actually, I'm going to keep it on for the first couple of projects. I would generally take this off and do my own date table, and we will cover that later in the month. Okay, so we've got all that. Let's click OK. Sometimes when you make changes to the options, it's good to restart the service just to make sure they've been deployed. So I'm just going to close that down. Save. I do want to save it, and I want to give it a name. I'm going to call it Sales Analysis and save that. And then I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to go and reopen that one up. So if I go to Power BI Desktop, I'm going to choose the file, which had nothing in it. It just was an empty file, but it's one of the steps that we're doing here on the right-hand side. By the way, the extension for the Power BI file is the .pbix. There's a PBIT, which is a template file, and there's also some other versions we're going to look at later. But for the main file, it's called a PBIX file. So click, and sometimes the zoom doesn't want to zoom back out. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to open up my analysis document. This has no tables, no queries. It has no structures. It's completely empty, and it has no reports. So it's as empty it could be. Notice at the moment is also saying there's an update available. I'm not going to do that. This is essentially just a lab environment, but it was my own. If I saw update available, I would probably go and grab that as well. Okay, so let's go and click on Get Data. And I'm just going to zoom that in a little bit so you can kind of see it a bit better. And in here, we're going to follow the instructions. So I need to show you the instructions first. My apologies there. So we've done desktop file, we've done desktop options, and here we're going to now go and get the data from SQL. So we're going to use a local host, which is a localized installation of SQL Server. So we can kind of just do the word local host to connect to it. So SQL Server, and come in a bit further and do local host and click OK. Now that's going to connect now with a connection string to that service. Now it's running locally, so there's no ports or anything else that needs to be opened up. But you can see here now, under the navigator, I do have a database called AdventureWorks DW 2020. And there's 27 tables inside that. I'm going to go and pick a number of those. I'm just going to, again, zoom out and show you which ones I want. And I'm going to need to start with dim employee and grab these 6 tables in total. So dim employee, I'm going to put a checkbox kind of like there in the left-hand pane now. I'm going to do the same for these other 5. And then I'm going to go and perform a transform data step. So let's go do that. So dim employee is about this one here. I do want the sales territory below that. I'm going to want products. I want reseller. I also want the reset sales territory. So that's the first 5, and then I go down and I want that's the dimension tables. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Scroll down a little bit further, and I want the fact reseller sales. I'm going to click the transform data button. Not load. I want to do some additional work, and I want to evaluate the data and look at it in a bit more detail before we get there. So let's go and see what we have here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you can see, we have 6 tables or queries also, as I know. We're going to now look at the details of this. So what we're going to do is, if you notice, right at the top, we have a window, and it's called the Power Query Editor, the PQE. So this is where we can do additional kind of manipulation of the table structures. We can remove columns, change data types, and do a whole bunch of transformations. And this is where you kind of do a lot of your kind of preloading and getting it shaped and ready in order for you to kind of make use of it in Power BI. So we're going to look at a few of those. Let's go look at the dim employee. That's our first table. And we can see if we look at the bottom there that we do have slightly under 300 rows and 33 columns. Okay, and we can see the column names. We can obviously scroll over to the right hand side and we keep going a little bit further. And as I get towards the end, you'll see that it changes a little bit. It now goes into table, table, value, and then there's a couple more columns with table and table. So these are relationships to the other structures. Remember, we're coming from SQL Server, so we have these relationships. So we're going down, but look a bit further, and we want to now understand the data a bit better. So let's kind of go all the way to the left again. And we want to look at the View ribbon tab. So this is this View tab up here. Under there, we're going to look at column quality. Now, look at the column itself, and then look at what happens when I click on column quantity. I get an additional set of values. It's telling me if there's errors, if there's values that are empty, and some more information. So I scroll over kind of to these, I can see more information about those. So let me go to do the next one. I'm going to go to position, which is the pretty much on the right hand side. Come back a couple of steps. Here we go. And we have a 94% of all the data is empty. It's pretty much a few records and the rest is null. Let's look at the column distribution. So if I click the column distribution again on the menu bar up here, so this is the column distribution one. We've already just ticked this one already, and we're going to also bring this one into play as well. So let me go and click the column distribution. Notice we have now 4 distinct and 1 unique. If I scroll over to the left hand side, when I look at my employee key table, I have 296 distinct as well as 296 unique. So basically there's 296 rows. They're all different. They're all unique. That's the unique key essentially that I can use. So that's going to be very useful for us. And zone out. So scrolling now, we can see some more information. I'm going to go through every single step because you can kind of imagine that. I'm just going to pick up that final column profile. And if I go down, you'll see when I choose a different column and I've got that column profile, I can see kind of more information about the distribution there. So I've got some stats, and how many odd and even numbers there are, what's the max min, how many zero, if there's unique, what are the values, anything empty. So I can see we have 1 empty value there. Now it's hard to really kind of tell in this resolution because I'm trying to show you the kind of instructions at the same time. But have a look around. There's more information about that. I think there's enough of a run through for that. And essentially we have some additional capabilities. We have, let's bring in the text CSV. So let's do that now. So let's go and kind of clear that one. And I'm also going to clear that window there. Don't want to apply my changes. I just was kind of taking a real estate tour. If I go get data, I have my text CSV. Now a very common flat file format that we want to do. In this case, we want to go and grab, I think, from the D drive. And here there's DA100 and there's some data there, and there's going to be the reseller sales 2020-06. So I'm going to grab that one there and pull that on it. Actually, it's the sales target I want. Let me go grab that one first. So you can see here I've got some details about what's inside of that. I'm just going to do a load on that one. Actually, I'll do a transform data. I just want to show you something quickly before we load it. And I want to show you how we click into transform data first and then load. So I've got everything I need, but I kind of want to make sure that we have, for example, the data types is a whole number. So we can kind of see that that is 2017. This is employee ID, and this is a whole number again. And notice where we don't have values, what we do is substitute it with a dash. So instead of having null, they've kind of used dashes there to substitute the kind of missing data. If I go to close and apply, that's going to now take that data, process it through the transformations I've set up, and bring that all in. So you see it's actually loading everything from the database, the dim employee, dim product, etc. And we're going to bring all that information. It will now have all those tables or queries that we can kind of then relate and build our model from. So we can see here that we have dim employee, and let me kind of move that over a little bit. So I'm just going to take that out and that out, so I can kind of just grab the edge of that. It's really hard to grab the edge of these. There we go. And you can see all the different table structures in there. Now we've got a bunch of other new tools as well that we can kind of use. And you need to spend some time going through. Now we have 3 different panes. We have our report pane, which is where you build all the canvases with the visualizations. We're going to take and look at that in a lot more detail later next month. Sorry, in October. But for now, you can kind of start building some quick reports by using some built-in visuals, grabbing those over, and then kind of using the model with the data to create your visuals. In the data tab, we have all of the different tables, and we can also build things like measures and refresh the data and perform a bunch of other operations. And in the model tab, if I zoom out and just kind of flatten a few of these windows, and I go to auto fit to screen, notice that we have a number of them, but there's no relationships that exist between these right now. Okay, so we're going to have to spend some time building relationships. We could have tried to do auto relationships. Let me just click on manage relationships and do auto detect. It's not going to find anything because we haven't turned on the auto detect functions. We turn those off. So I can go and it's found, sorry, I've turned, it's found 6. I clicking the auto detect would find them, sorry, and we can kind of see that. And what it does, it looks at the same column name with the same data type and works out, well, that should be related to this table in that way. So we click close on that, and what we'll find is wait for it to do it, and we're going to now do a kind of auto reset, and then we have a little bit more of a visual one. Now there is one table that didn't kind of get related, and we'd probably have to go and look at that one in turn as to why that is. And this is a little bit kind of needs a bit more kind of figuring out a little bit, and also which way the arrows are going. So if I zone in a little bit on this one and move this down into there, you can see that we have arrows coming down here. So let me kind of I think I can kind of probably pin that one there, and we can see that we have a flow that comes down from the one side to the star, which is the many side. So we have one sales territory. Naturally, we kind of have a smallest of dimensions about the territory, but employees will basically maybe be joining on multiple territories. And in fact, we also have the similar process where we're going from the one side also down to the fact reseller. So this is what is called a dimension, and this is what we call a fact table. And generally you will have a lot of dimensions that will kind of sit around, and they will filter into your fact table. So we got a model that has relationships built between these structures. So we'll go into more detail on, say, subsequent videos around relationships and how you troubleshoot and make sure, and different aspects of the relationships. But essentially at the moment, it's automatically detected those, and it's did it for everyone apart from one of the columns there. So we're not going to spend any more time in this, but you can kind of go through and look at that yourself. But essentially, once you've understood the data a little bit, you can save that, and then you can come in and we can kind of grab a visual and put it onto the screen, kind of make it a little bit, and then what we can do is start putting some numbers into that. So let me go grab, for example, the sales amount, and I'm going to put that into the values, and I want to do an access based on, let's go and say we want to do that on, let's have a look here at the month there. So I'm going to go to my hierarchy, and I want to bring in that into my axis. And then if I go to the full screen and minimize these a little bit so we can see them a bit better, I can see the years I can see the values, and I've kind of got a start of the visual. I would build that and make it a bit more complicated, you know, and start maybe having 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 at least on that. We kind of build some reports. So if you want to kind of get started with some of that, there's some easy ways for you to do that. You can go and kind of import some samples. You can use the Power BI service. I say we're going to cover those in a little more detail. The final piece I'm going to cover in this episode is how to change those sources. So let me go back to here. Now what we have is recent sources. We can obviously go and find those resources there. But I want to change what I have. So I'm going to click on Transform Data, which takes me back into the Power Query Editor. And in here, I have a couple of things. Now, I'm not going to tell you all the tricks that we need to know today, but basically, if you want to just change where the location of the file is, if it's like Excel or a database you change, you can do data source settings, and you make kind of click on there, and you can see where the location is, and you could change that path quite easily. If you want to change the kind of type of source, so say from Excel to a SQL database, or an Access database to a SQL, then essentially what we can do is we can do a few tricks around taking the M query, which is essentially, let me kind of show you what the M query looks like. So this is dim employee, and I go to my advanced editor. This is essentially is the M query. So it's got a piece of code. Now, what I could do is I could go in, I could change the details and even change the types from maybe Excel to SQL. And I'm now going to put the code in. And essentially, this dim employee table or query has a new source, which is a different type, and that's going to be something I'm going to use. So we will show you some examples of that in another video. As we get through this month, there's some more advanced videos I'm going to show you how we do things. Okay, so let me cancel that. This one's ready. I'm going to just close that one out without applying. That means I'm not making any changes. And I'm ready to go. It's probably needs a lot more report to this, but if we want to publish it, this is where we do the publishing. And we won't do that today because we've got a lot more. But if I want to start adding in additional things like filtering. So let's say I want to filter for the last 3 years. And I kind of maybe do it by value, and I want to kind of find the last top 3 or the bottom 3. I can kind of put some numbers in here, and I can then build the field in to say what is the value. So I want the top 3 based on amount of sales. You know, find me the best years, find me the best months in that year, find me the best sales person in this group of salespeople. Whatever it might be, we can kind of build out those. But I can also do some very basic kind of filter as well. So I do all, and I'm going to go, instead of that, I just do basic filtering. I can just check the years that I want. So I don't want, maybe I just want the last 2 years. I can choose 2018, 19 and 2020. And I can also lock that. So when I upload it to the service, it's, unless they go and kind of go into edit mode and unlock it, that's essentially is just going to be the ones that are available. And if I want to clear that, I can clear that in this report, but say you need to kind of be mindful of how you kind of do that. And also I can kind of make that filter invisible by clicking on the link there to kind of highlight or change the visibility of that filter, etc. Okay. So we have finished with that lab for now. Let's go and move that out of the way. In the certification track, you will kind of find your journey. This was the prepare the data. This is the skills that we're going to be covering. We have already picked up these 2 for today's video. So I can get the cursor doesn't want to follow me exactly. There we go. And if we want to see more details, we're going to have this. Now, this file will be available very soon. I'm waiting for the website to be stood up, and it's going to take a few more days for that to be available. I've got somebody working on it right now. So, you know, be patient. It will come to you. But the videos have the instructions. The Microsoft Learn is available. You can go and grab all that now. And we've basically finished that lab. We finished those instructions. We can go and check our knowledge, and we can then see a few questions. I'm going to let you answer these. I know exactly what the questions answers are, but I'm going to let you answer them so you don't cheat. When you're finished, you get a summary, and you then get the next module. And in this case, it might be the clean, transform and load data in Power BI. So that is kind of a wrap for today. We're going to come back and have another video for you on Wednesday. Again, I'm also going to make you aware of a free course that you may be able to win a seat for. Now, what it is, let me just go grab I can find that one there and do so on the screen there, you'll see that we have it's a DA100 5-day course, August the 17th to the 21st, 2020. So in just over about a week or so's time. During this week, we have been giving keywords out for each of the Sunday, yesterday, today. We also had another one, and we've got them up until Friday. And then on Saturday, we're opening up the competition form for people to submit their answers of what these kind of words of the day were. They then get put into a kind of random selector. We will choose a winner for each day. Those winners will then go into a final hat, and we will choose a grand winner to win the seat on this training, which is 895. Normally we'll be 1295 next year. We're running 2 courses, one in August 17th to 21st, and in October the 19th to the 23rd. Details again are in the description below if you want to know more. And this is then going to have a winner. Those who got the day win but didn't end up being the final winner will get a discount on the kind of access to that course in August, or access into the course in October. So we thank you very much for joining us. It's good to see you. Data+Train, Power BI partner, YouTube channel. We're going to share a bunch of instructions with you. I love kind of doing the Power BI stuff. I got involved with some of the exam stuff, so I kind of know what's inside of this certification. I'm also currently recording express exam videos for Microsoft through one of my partners, and that will be out, and I'll share more information with you once that's done and those are ready. But otherwise, I will see you soon. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Stay safe.